Hi, I'm Jacob Wood. Today I'm going to be doing a screen reader demonstration of a course that was built by Dr. Nicole L'Etoile using Claude Design and Claude Code. It took 83 rounds to get this to the state that it's in currently, and we'll talk today about how a screen reader interacts with this course, what it gets right, and what it takes to get it there. I'm going to start by entering the content area of this slide or this course.
Main landmark user dash generated artifact content frame link skip to main content.
You heard a lot of information there. Mostly it was just telling me that I entered a new frame. It's just based on how Claude wraps this course in its own um, design. But the main thing here is that there's a skip to content link is the very first tab stop. So that's really important for skipping past repetitive navigation and getting a keyboard user straight into the content.
Banner landmark heading level 1 accessible by design, verified by testing. Audit a realistic e-learning lesson for accessibility barriers, then compare it against a remediated version. Main landmark choose a view.
Now you heard earlier that there was a banner landmark, and now we're in the main landmark. These landmarks are really great for navigation, so I'm glad to see that Claude had built those. We're just going to look at the remediated view today.
Tab selected learner view, tab 1 of 5.
But there are multiple different views here that we can take a look at.
Tab audit view, tab 2 of 5. Tab remediated view, tab 3 of 5.
Now you can hear that it is telling me how many tabs there are in this list. That's really helpful for knowing how many more tab presses I'm going to have and when I'm going to be cycling through. I'm going to go ahead and select the remediated view.
Remediated view, tab 3 of 5, tab selected 3 of 5.
You heard that it said that the tab was selected. That's really important. That means I know which tab that I'm actually active on. As a screen reader user, I wouldn't know which tab was selected if it didn't tell me that. And that's actually something that you have to make the code do. It's not going to do that without special ARIA techniques.
Tab sample report, tab 4 of 5. Tab how it was built, tab 5 of 5. Heading level 2 module 3 : preventing workplace harassment.
So now we are in the main content area. It's giving me the title. I really like how there is a heading immediately after those tabs. The reason is as a screen reader user, if I'm going back and forth between these tabs, I don't necessarily want um, to have to listen to tabs 4 or 5 again if I'm going back to, let's say I'm going back to tab 2 or 3. I can jump to the heading straight away, and I'll demonstrate that just really briefly here.
Tab how it was built, tab sample report, tab select, tab audit view.
Let's say I was on the audit view, or I just
tab selected
clicked on,
remediated view, tab 3 of 5.
If I had just clicked on the remediated view, I don't necessarily need to tab through 4 and 5 if I just jump to this heading.
Remediated view, tab 3 of 5, property page module 3 : preventing workplace harassment, heading level 2.
If there is no heading there, I would need to tab through 4 and 5 again. This is just a really smooth experience for screen reader users, and it's one of those things that Claude Design isn't necessarily going to know to do on its own. You actually have to tell it to generate content in this way. I'm glad to see that was done here.
Graphic: 2 co-workers sit across from each other at a table in a bright office, smiling and making eye contact during a respectful conversation.
So we have some alt text. It told me that this was a graphic, and it told me what the graphic was about in fairly succinct terms. I get the idea that there are some people here in an office setting, and we're going to probably talk more about the training policies that they're engaging with.
Respect and clear boundaries prevent most workplace conflicts. This module walks through what harassment looks like, how to respond in the moment, and how to report a concern. Visited link: read the full workplace conduct policy.
So I like how this link here has the full text of the where the link is going. If I am just navigating by link only, which a screen reader user can do, I'm going to hear this.
Read the full workplace conduct policy, visited link.
And I know exactly what that means. If that just said click here, then I wouldn't know what here was taking me to. So this is another one of those things where it's helpful to know what to tell Claude to do, because it may just create a read more link or a click here link, and that doesn't do a lot to help screen reader navigation.
Heading level 3 : watch : recognizing workplace harassment. Button: play video.
And I think this video is just a demonstration, so there's nothing really here, but notice how the video was labeled, or the button was labeled, so I know that if this were functioning, I could press this button and it would play the video. An unlabeled button would just say button, and I wouldn't know what it did. If you have many buttons in a row, like on a video player, then your play, pause, mute, up and down volume, none of those would mean anything to me. So having those labels is very helpful.
3:40 middle dot captions on by default middle dot visited link read the left quote recognizing workplace harassment right quote transcript.
So this is telling you how long the video is, which is helpful. In this scenario, captions would be on by default. Not entirely sure if that's necessary. Sometimes people want to have those off and be able to toggle them on, but making sure that the video has captions is important. And then we had a link to the transcript, which was also descriptive.
Heading level 3 quick conduct tips.
Quick conduct tips.
3 tips. Use previous and next to move through them, or auto-play to advance them automatically.
Sounds like we're going to hit a carousel here.
Grouping tip 1 of 3. Treat every colleague with respect, whatever their role. Button previous. Button next.
So we have some previous and next buttons that are labeled.
Tip 2 of 3. If something feels wrong, report it don't wait for it to escalate. Tip 3 of 3. Know who your HR and reporting contacts are before you need them. Tip 1 of 3. Treat every colleague.
It cycles properly, and I noticed that when I press the next button, it just reads the content to me. Many carousels don't do that, so I would need to press the next button, hope that something loaded, then navigate backward and read the content again. Then navigate forward, back to the next button, and repeat. I really like how just pressing next reads the text, leaves my cursor on the next button so I can press it again. This is a very smooth experience, one that probably took quite a bit of prompting to get right.
Button auto-play.
We have an autoplay button. I'll go ahead and give this a try.
Auto-play off, auto-play on. Tip 2 of 3. If something feels wrong, report it don't wait for it to escalate. Tip 3 of 3. Know who your HR and reporting contacts are before you need them. Tip 1 of 3. Treat every colleague with respect, whatever their role. Tip 2 of 3. If something auto-play off.
Okay, so that just read the tips out loud as they scrolled. I like how this is telling me whether autoplay is on or off. A lot of these toggle buttons don't always tell you what state they're in. So being able to know when that's on and when that's off is helpful.
Out of grouping heading level 3 sign in to save progress. Form full name left paren, required right paren.
I like how this tells me that the field is required.
Full name left paren, required right paren, edit required.
And if I navigate just to that box, it does tell me that it is a name box and that it's required. If a box does not have a label, it would just say edit box, which doesn't tell me anything if I'm navigating by control. So making sure that the box is labeled is, again, a very helpful way for screen readers to get around without having to guess at things.
Email address left paren, required right paren, edit required. Start quiz button.
I'm not actually going to enter anything into those boxes. They sound like they work. I'm going to press start quiz.
But question 1 of 5 dialog, form landmark, form question 1 of 5 heading level 3, question 1 of 5 dialog, heading level 3 question 1 of 5.
I like how the modal that popped up here took focus, and it tells me which question I'm on.
Grouping if you witness harassment at work, you should first : support the person and report it to HR radio button not checked. Checked.
I'm going to check and see if these are actual radio buttons. I can do that by switching NVDA into focus mode and using my arrow keys. They should navigate between the radio buttons when using the up and down arrows.
Ignore it and hope it stops radio button checked 2 of 3. Repeat it so others hear radio button checked 3 of 3. Support the person and report it to HR radio button checked 1 of 3.
So you can hear how they are navigating between the radio buttons as I press my up and down arrows. That's exactly what we want to hear. I'm going to press tab to jump into the next group, and if they're labeled properly, the question should read aloud to me as I tab into the radio group.
Submit quiz button.
Oh, there's only a submit quiz button.
If you witness harassment at work, you should first : grouping, support the person and report it to HR radio.
Maybe I am jumping ahead of myself. Let's arrow through these in browse mode and see if I missed anything or if submit really is the next button.
Radio but out of grouping button submit quiz.
And it is, so that's perfect. I would maybe not use submit quiz here, since this is a 1 of 5. Maybe check answer or next answer would be a better label to not confuse people. So this is another example of how things can be technically WCAG compliant, meaning the button is labeled, it does do a thing, and it likely is wired up correctly, but the label itself is a little bit confusing.
Button accessible by design, verified by testing M-accessibility training document, link skip to main content, main landmark remediated view, tab 3 of 5 property page start quiz button, quiz submitted. Thanks continue to the next section when you're ready.
So you heard it read a lot of those things again. That's just how a lot of screen readers, including NVDA, will read content that loads dynamically. It is basically refreshing the page as it goes, to simplify it. So it may start reading the page title and the frame that you're in again. Totally normal if you're doing screen reader testing to hear that sort of thing.
Heading level 2 what changed, and why it works. Table with 13 rows and 3 columns row 1 column 1 fix. Column 2 why it works.
So we're in a table. It read how many columns and rows there are.
Column 3 criterion. Row 2 fix column 1 meaningful alt text. Why it works column 2 describes what the image conveys left paren, quote 2 co-workers in a respectful conversation quote right paren, so screen-reader users get the same information sighted users do. Criterion column 3 1.1.1 non-text content.
I like how the headings of each of these columns is labeled. So as I navigate between them, I don't have to try to remember what the column heading is because it reads that out to me each time I move between them.
Row 3 fix column 1 high contrast body text.
Again, this is the fix.
Why it works column 2.
This is the why it works column.
Criterion column 3.
This is the criteria column. And I didn't have to go back up to the top to read that. I can also tell that this is a proper table as opposed to just formatted text because I can move up and down with my Control-Alt-Arrow keys. So with NVDA, that's the keyboard shortcut for moving around a table. I can move down.
Row 4 2.4.4 link per row 5 1.2.2 caption.
So you notice how I was just moving by row within the same column, and it didn't read the column label again because I was already in that column. But if I move to the next column over,
why it works column 2 captions and a transcript give this.
It did read why it works again to me because now it needs to give me that context again.
Row 6 a heading outline with no gaps let. Fix column 1 sequential H2 right arrow H3 headings. Row 7 the carousel replaced by a plain list.
If this were just formatted text, I wouldn't be able to do that. I would need to read through each thing individually. I'm going to press the comma key to jump to the bottom of the table.
End of remediated view content, tab 3 of 5.
It's going to jump me out to the bottom of the table, and it said that this was the end of the remediated view content.
Button go to sample report right arrow.
And there's a button to go to the sample report. So there are a lot of really great things about this interaction. It did take 83 turns again to make this as accessible as it is. I think Cloud Design is not built necessarily to be accessible. It's designed to be a design tool. So when you are using Cloud Design to vibe code a course, it's a great tool for jumping in and getting the skeleton of your course built out very quickly. Then I recommend going over to Claude Code earlier rather than later. I know Dr. Nicole had switched this into Claude Code eventually, but lesson learned, jumping into Claude Code sooner will likely get you to reduce the number of rounds that it takes to build it accessibly. Then when you are in Claude Code, using some of your AI skills to remind it about accessibility, because once you are vibe coding, changing something on one round might not stick. And I mean by that, if you tell it to make this a semantic table, then it might do that this time, but maybe 10 turns later, it has changed it back into just formatted text again. So for it to remember that you want to use semantic tables all of the time, you need to give it a brain. Claude Code is capable of taking skills, which are just markdown files, that you can feed it to remember things. So making it, give it a brain.md or blueprint.md file might, and telling it to read that, then inside that file, giving it the WCAG standards that you are trying to align with, and telling it how to use ARIA. Those types of things will help it remember where it's at in the process and remember not to break things at a later time. It's still not perfect, but I think that there are a lot of ways that we as designers can improve our output so that this doesn't take us 83 rounds to get to every single time. But I think this has shown that you can get here with AI. You just need to have a lot of that accessibility expertise yourself, because you can't outsource all of the accessibility to Claude. Obviously, it didn't remember that the submit quiz button should be called something else, unless I did get something wrong there. I noticed that when I pressed the submit quiz button, it actually did submit it. So maybe I missed something. But knowing that we can give it specific things to fix, we can tell it to make sure that we're using radio buttons for quizzes instead of regular buttons, because a lot of times AI will use just a series of buttons rather than these radios, which is not a great solution for keyboard users. Making sure that your tabs have a heading after after the tabs and before the content is another one of those things that an accessibility expert would know to do that Claude might not necessarily on its own. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and leave it there for now. Feel free to reach out to Dr. Nicole or myself if you have any questions.
Clips controls row 1 column clips mute audio unmute audio setting start video setting stop share button.